Welcome to Security Nation, an ESA podcast that brings you the voice of electronic security and life safety. We bring on security pros to discuss the latest industry happenings, new technology, and best practices, telling your story to become the ever-present voice in an ever-changing industry. I'd like to introduce this episode's guest. We have Kevin Stone, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President at Doyle Security Systems. Kevin began his career with Doyle in 1989 and is a 32-year veteran in the alarm industry. He started as a commercial security consultant and now has responsibility for sales, installation, and service for Doyle Security's 8 branches. Kevin currently sits on the advisory boards of the Monitoring Association, the Security Industry Alarm Coalition, Residio, and the American Cancer Society, and he is the past president of the Akron Newstead Rotary, vice president of the Akron Central School District Board of Education, and he is the past chairman of the Western New York chapter of American Society for Industrial Security. He has the CPP, Certified Protection Professional Certification, and was a Crime Stoppers board member. He is also currently the treasurer on ESA's board of directors, and he leads ESA's finance committee. So Kevin sure likes to volunteer for the industry. Thanks for coming on the podcast today, Kevin.
You're welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, great to have you. So for those who may not know about, your background and stuff, I know I kind of went through it in the bio, but in your own words, kind of share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the business now for 32, going on 33 years. It's a great industry. I've really enjoyed the industry. I can tell you that I sold advertising before I came into this industry and never thought that I'd last for over 3 decades. It's a great industry though. I like to say it's a greater good industry. We do a lot to help protect people and, save lives and protect assets and everything else that we do every day. And I still remember to this day, I was a salesperson and I got a phone call from a gentleman who told me that we had a fire alarm system installed about a year prior to that. And he told me that without question, it saved his family's life. And I just remember that resonating with me and thinking to myself, this is really, really cool what we do every day. It's very important. And it's been very rewarding for me. I've really enjoyed the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, who can say that they're involved in an industry that protects people's lives, literally, and their belongings? So one reason I really wanted to talk with you today is you were a speaker during an education at ESX. The education session was labor utilization methods and best practices to manage rising costs. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you can kind of elaborate a little bit on this education session, the importance of kind of having a session that goes over this topic, and your experience of it.
Yeah, sure. At first, it was great to participate in that session. There was a really great panel that was put together, and we had a really nice time talking to the industry, if you will. It's an incredibly important topic, I think, today, maybe more so than it has been over the last few decades, even because labor is in short supply and high demand. It's very difficult to find people these days. So I think the steps that you can take to become more efficient and track how you're doing becomes that much more important, because you can't just go find labor. I mean, we've got more work today than we can install with the labor team that we have. So it becomes a challenge. We basically have to utilize subcontractors and overtime and some things that are not sustainable for the long term. So I think focusing on making sure that you're really efficient is incredibly important. And then further to that, we got into the burden labor rate, which I think is something that all companies should be looking at. You need to know what your expenses are. And if you don't know what your expenses are, your true expenses, and they're extensive. There's a lot that it takes to put a technician out in the field each and every day. And if you don't know what those expenses are, it's very difficult to bill the customer the appropriate amount of money. So it was a wonderful conversation.
No, yeah. I mean, that's great. Maybe we can go into maybe some of the specifics that y'all discussed during that session. So one of the goals was to go over ways, practical ways to improve productivity. Would you be able to go over some of those that were suggested during that session?
Sure. So, I'd start with this. I think you need to focus on your labor that's out in the field. And I think there's ways to measure different indicators or KPIs, if you will, that will tell you how efficient you are. And then you can, once you know where you're at, then you can take steps to improve upon that. So we look at things like, we take our technicians' time out in the field. We look at the amount of time that they're working, the amount of time that they're traveling, and the amount of time that we would put into a bucket called dead time. And obviously you want to eliminate dead time to the extent that you can. Travel is a necessary evil, but the more that you can reduce that and become efficient there, especially as it relates to service technicians, the more you can see some efficiency gains there. And obviously the more that they work and the more that you're billing a customer for that time, the better off we are. So I think oftentimes you fall into the trap of not knowing what you don't know because you're not tracking it. And once you start tracking some things like that, then you can really start to make decisions to become not only more efficient, but make sure you're billing the right labor rates and taking the necessary steps to do what it is to be as efficient as possible. We've got a tremendous amount of KPIs here at Doyle, and we look at a lot of things. We look at how many service calls we do in a month. Obviously, we measure it by man. So we go calls per tech per day. So we look at the number of calls that are done by a service technician each day, and we rank them by individual and also by the branch. So what ends up happening, and we're fortunate to have multiple branches, those branches tend to it gets a little competitive, and they try to one up the other team and be as efficient as they can possibly be, which is obviously good for all of us. So it's things like that you can measure that I think, really help you become more efficient.
No, I 100% agree. It almost sounds like, in a way, when you start tracking it, you can start gamifying it. Like you were saying, it kind of becomes a way, if you have separate teams, where you have that friendly competition. And I don't know, I've noticed that in different places I've worked. As soon as we started having, KPIs or stating, like, this is a specific goal, a number that we're shooting for, even if there's no huge reward, just having that, immediately people's competitive spirit, and it becomes a game, and you start hitting goals like crazy.
I was going to say, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And I would say that we've got a scorecard. We track about probably 25 or 30 different KPIs and indicators of how well we're doing. And we share those with our entire team. And in fact, each quarter we go branch by branch and we discuss those results specific to that branch. And what ends up happening is if somebody's not at the top of the pile, they really want to find a way to get there. So they'll call the other branches and say, how are you doing this? How are you getting 7 calls per technician per day? I'm only at 5.5. And they share best practices, and they really do try to get better, which is obviously helping everybody. So it's a great point that you make.
Oh, it's fantastic. So on the other side of the coin is reducing labor costs. Are there any, best practices that you shared when it came to that particular goal?
So, again, I'll go back to the efficiency measures, and I'd say things like, GPS. We've got GPS on all of our trucks. So we track things like when we start each day and when we end each day. And then if you do the math, you can figure out how many hours are worked in between. And if you look at that by person and you start sharing that data by person, then you can start to impact that. We look at if one branch is only billing at 7 hours a day and another branch is billing at closer to 8 hours a day, that's an opportunity for that one branch to improve. So I think those sorts of things. When do we start the day? When do we end the day? How many calls are we doing every day? Are we doing greater than one service call per customer in a month? That kind of thing. They all help you manage your business and get you to a place where you're more efficient. And again, with labor, I can't enforce enough. With labor being in such high demand and short supply, it's very difficult. And if you're not as efficient as you can possibly be, you're just not going to make it happen. It's going to be more difficult for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're making it harder for yourself. All right. So this next question is kind of multi-pronged. Basically is, do you think that training has a large, role to play when it comes to these, factors? And then additionally, standardizing products that was discussed, I believe. And
Yes.
I don't know, maybe technology applications that could be used. I don't know. Are there other ways of looking at it to be able to achieve these goals and tracking?
Sure. So I'll try to touch on both. I think we did touch on product standardization, and that is important. And it's important because the more products you have, the more difficult it is to have your tech team up and running and understanding the features and functionality of it, how to install it, that kind of thing. So as much as you can standardize, you're going to help yourself out in the long run. We've done a lot of acquisitions, and with acquisitions come a multitude of different products, and we certainly see our challenges. We'll have people that are very familiar working on a particular type of panel, and then we do an acquisition, they have to go out and work on another type of panel. They figure it out. I mean, it's not completely different, but it's significantly different to the point that it makes them less efficient in the field. They might have to call for tech support. They might have to call one of their other workers and ask them some questions, that kind of thing. So it slows us down a little bit. It's, again, if you're going to be focused on efficiency, standardization of product is really, really important. And familiarity is the biggest reason that becomes a benefit to you, I believe. And then as far as training, I would say, yeah, training's critically important and always has been critically important. I'd add to that, it's an easy thing to look past. You know, we do strategic planning every year, and we all sit in a room and we say, we've got to do more training. And this is the year we're going to do a ton of training. And then the year comes and goes, and you get to the end of the year and you didn't do nearly as much training as you wanted to. And when I talk to my team about it, they say, we just don't have time. We're so busy that we have to do, normal day-to-day work, if you will. We have to take care of the customer. We have to do installs. We have to do service calls. And I agree. That's true. That's of paramount importance for sure. But if you don't train your staff and make them more efficient, then you're not going to be able to continue to service them as well as you could, or continue to install that product as well as you could, or even, just best practices. There's so many things that people can learn from training. And one last thing I'll add, as labor has become more and more difficult to find, we've had to switch to a model where we're hiring people that don't have very much industry experience at all. In fact, oftentimes they don't have any. Mm-hmm. And we go looking for people that are high character, have a great attitude, and we think we can teach them. And obviously then training becomes critically important. And so we've got a lot of in the field training programs that we do through other technicians, and we support them that way. We've got a lot of online training that we take. ESA recently came out with they've reworked a technician start program where you can basically enroll technicians into this program and kind of learn the ABCs of the alarm industry, if you will. And so we're starting to utilize that more, and that seems to be very effective. So yeah, both of those things, in my opinion, are very important.
Great. And then I think the last, at least one of the last factors that you guys talked about during that session was technological applications that would be able to use to help control cost. Would you be able to kind of go over maybe some that were suggested, or maybe methods?
I'd start with automation. GPS is a pretty obvious one that you could talk about, but that allows you to measure an awful lot of things. You have to balance, sometimes the team gets a little nervous, are you watching over everything that I do? And, there's an element of the big brother aspect to this for sure. But I think over time, people come to understand that we really are using it as a utilization tool to get more efficient. And we're really not trying to breathe down somebody's back and give them a hard time. Yes, we want them to be as efficient as possible, but we're not watching every move. And people need to do some things or stop at the store. And we do allow for some of that. So I would say that that's really important. I would also say, the automation of paperwork, all of our technicians have iPads. We can put accounts on tests through the iPads. We can get a lot of data through the iPads. We can take care of the customer through the iPads. We administer our survey program through the iPads. And I would say if you haven't automated your paperwork process, that's something that you should look at, because it's just so much better. It's so much faster. It's streamlined. It works a lot better. The customers enjoy it. I think they expect it today. And so that was one of the things that we did several years ago that's really paid dividends.
Oh, it's fantastic. So I think around this point in the podcast, we're about the halfway mark. We've kind of gone over some of the key points in that ESX session that you sat on and spoke on. Sure. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe we can go into some of your volunteer work that you're doing at ESA, and maybe your opinion on ESA's role in the industry right now. So there's always a lot going on. Even in my introduction, I say we're a very ever-changing industry. What would you say is one of our biggest industry challenges that we're dealing with right now, and what do you think ESA's role is within that challenge?
Well, one we touched on already. I'd have to go right to labor. It's just in such high demand right now, and it's not just our industry. So all industries are fighting for labor, and it's become a significant problem. I've got friends in many different types of businesses, and all of them are struggling with this. So I think the more ESA can do to help train those people and to attract people to this industry and build awareness about the industry and what a rewarding industry it is. Being in the industry for over 3 decades, I can look around and say, there's a lot of people I know today that are still in this industry that were in the industry when I joined. And it's not an industry where people kind of come into it, spend a few years and jump out of it. By and large, the people that get into this industry, they stick around because I think they find it to be very rewarding. And that's another role that ESA plays, just building the value of the industry, making sure that people understand how important it is, and getting our message out to companies. I just think the stronger the industry is and the stronger other alarm companies are, the better off we all are. So I think that ESA has a significant role to play. Starts with training, but it goes so much beyond that. ESX is a great show in bringing people together and sharing ideas and best practices and, getting vendors with key people and decision makers. The value of that, every year I go, and it's just so worthwhile. It really is quite incredible.
Yeah, 100% agree. Actually, everyone, like our board and a lot of our leadership was down in Louisville, Kentucky just a few days ago, getting everything planned for ESX 2023 next year. So it's definitely on the mind, and we're all very excited, and I think it's going to be a great year next year. So anyone who's listening, who's interested in learning more about next year's ESX, go to esxweb.com, and we have the dates, and more info is going to be released shortly. Moving on to another question. So you are the treasurer right now, and head of the finance committee at ESA. What do you hope to accomplish in this role and with this committee at ESA?
First of all, they're in tremendous shape already. I joined an organization in a situation that's really in a very good place. Coming out of the pandemic, I was a little concerned about, the finances and where would the group sit and what was membership and everything else that kind of plays into that, and found it to be a very healthy organization that's already in great shape. So I guess I would start with this. I don't want to screw it up, but if I can reach that goal, then really my ultimate goal is to try to make things a little bit better. So maybe a little bit more money in the bank, maybe a little bit better, build on membership and help the committee that focuses on membership. Anything we can do to increase the membership, I think, is a really good thing for the industry. And obviously a lot of our revenue comes from there, so that's a good thing. And I would just say, just continue to build it. I mean, there's been a lot of great work. Excuse me. There's been a lot of great work that's been done on behalf of ESA over the years from many different volunteers. And I just want to keep that momentum going and build upon it and help the team any way I can.
No, it's fantastic. Could you kind of describe how the finance committee is going to kind of work and what the committee's goals are and kind of how it's structured?
Yeah, so the finance committee is going to meet quarterly. We've got some great additions to the team this year. And, we basically, that finance committee oversees the finances for ESA. So they take a look at, our investments. We've got some money that's invested in some different areas. We've got our SARG insurance program, which is really important and just a great benefit to the industry. If you're not involved with SARG and you're not looked at their insurance programs, I would suggest that you do that, because that's something that is a real benefit. They understand the alarm industry. They know what they're doing as far as insurance goes, and it's just, we've used them for years and we've been very happy with them. And, there's finances associated with programs like that. There's finances associated with ESX. We build a budget for what's it going to cost to put ESX on. And we want to make sure that we adhere to that budget and, in fact, try to beat those numbers to the extent that we can. So the finance committee provides governance for those things. They also provide a lot of suggestions, ideas, ways to build our revenue, ways to become more financially stable, and those sorts of things. So we've got a very dynamic group. I'm really looking forward to working with them, and I'm sure we're going to do some great work together. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, we're excited too. Are you able to kind of share with some of the members or that were selected or recruited, and maybe why they're selected and why you're excited to work with them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the dangerous thing here is I'm probably going to forget somebody. I'll start with John Loud, our chairman. He's going to be on the committee. Merlin's on the committee, obviously, Merlin Gillowell. Jamie Voss is the outgoing chairman. He's going to be on the committee, which we're excited about. We added Jennifer Holloway from CIBC Bank. She obviously brings a lot of information and knowledge about the alarm industry from a financial perspective, so I think she's going to be a great addition. Really excited we added Brian Duffy from Permar. He's got a tremendous company out in the Midwest called Permar Security. They do a wonderful job, and he's an up-and-coming superstar in this industry, and I think he's going to help us out and have a lot of really great feedback. So that's most of the team at this point. If I left anybody out, I'm very, very apologetic for that. But it's a great group of people, and we're going to do some really good work.
No, I agree. And, forgetting some people's names here and there, that's just the nature of the beast of speaking off the cuff on these kind of formats here. So, what would you say to someone who is considering ESA membership, maybe has been considering it for a while, but just hasn't, officially pulled the trigger? What would you say to those listeners out there?
I'd say jump in and give it a shot. It's very reasonable from a financial investment perspective. I'd say that the biggest challenge, and we struggle with this still to this day at Doyle, we underutilize ESA. There's a lot of benefits and things that are available to us that we don't take full advantage of. And I know ESA recently rolled out a program where they'll overview all the different benefits, and they'll spend about 30 minutes on the phone, or I'm sorry, on a call, a virtual call with you, and they'll walk you through all the different programs. And, the ones that pique your interest or you really are want to know more information about, they can go a little bit further on that and provide some more data. But again, I know that we underutilize this program, and we've made a big commitment to try to expand the resources that we're utilizing. Training is an obvious one. We underutilize the training. There's some tremendous training that's available that we are just not taking advantage of. So I would say if you look at all the benefits that ESA has, it's pretty difficult to not be able to justify it probably 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways.
Oh, no, that's great. Yeah, we that is something that we've started being really open about, is that we're always willing to do, an onboarding call to go over all of our benefits and how they can serve you and your company. And even if you are, a current ESA member, but, maybe you aren't aware of all the offerings that we have, even if you've been a member for 20 years, we're still totally happy and would love to actually hop on a call with you and go over, the different ways that you could be utilizing your membership that maybe you just weren't aware of or, just didn't have the time to get to until now. We all know that every day we're dealing with the everyday whirlwind of our responsibilities, and sometimes it can be hard to take that time to consider training, consider a new insurance program, consider, joining an EMP group for networking. So yeah, we're always happy to communicate with y'all and find different ways to serve your business. Yeah,
can I just build on that for 1 second? Because we are one of those companies that you referenced. We've been a member for years and years and years, and we absolutely, as I mentioned, we underutilize it. There were programs I wasn't aware of until I became more involved with the board. And that really just shouldn't take joining the board to become more involved with the program. We should have been digging a little bit deeper ourselves, and the resources are all there for the taking. And ESA has a great staff. Everyone I talk to there is more than willing to help out and do whatever they can to answer questions, provide information, get us signed up for this or that. It's a great group that's ready to help out the industry.
No, that's great. And I'm happy that you've enjoyed your experience with our staff here. I mean, everyone here, I agree, is someone that truly cares about our members. That is always front of mind. When our members are succeeding, we're happy. So, right. All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. I think that was everything that we planned on going over today. So And I think we hit about, the perfect time cutoff and everything. So unless there's anything else that you'd like to add, Kevin, I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
I think I'm all set, Hannah. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the industry here a little bit. And if anyone out there wants to further discuss anything that I've talked about with me, I'm always available. You can reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find. You can find me on our website or through ESA, and I'd be happy to answer any questions and do whatever I can to help out. So thanks a lot for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So thanks again for coming on and guesting on the Security Nation podcast. And thank you, listeners who tuned in. Make sure to subscribe. We're on all the podcasting platforms, and the video version is available on YouTube. And if you're curious about how ESA membership can power your business, make sure to visit our website at esaweb.org and take some time to schedule that discovery call with the membership team like we discussed. You'll be happy you did. Have a great day, Security Pros.
Thank you.